Is visible to all of you? Please do respond.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, fine. All right. So we were here yesterday. I was explaining to you what a leading question is. Whenever you ask a question, do not give an indication of what an expected answer is. A leading question is one that gives hints to the respondent as to what the answer should be. So if you ask a question like, do you think patriotic Americans should buy imported automobiles, when that would put American labor out of work, there is a very clear hint in the question that patriotic Americans should not buy. Right. So you are actually in some way biasing the respondent into thinking that, okay, if you're a patriotic person, you should not be by allowing the import of automobiles. So this kind of question is called a leading question because the answer is implicit. Answer should be no in this case, right? So you're indirectly trying to tell the respondent what is an acceptable answer. So the question like, do you think that patriotic Americans should buy imported automobiles when they would put American labor out of work? Okay, so similarly, I was telling you yesterday, if you ask a question, do you think Indians should buy Chinese phones when Indian soldiers are dying at the border with China? Right. So automatically your answer will be no, you will not, you shouldn't be buying. Right. So those kinds of questions are called leading questions. So avoid asking leading questions. Typically, the way you should ask the question is, do you think Americans should buy imported automobiles? Full stop. Or let's say question mark. Okay, so don't put value judgment into it. Don't bias it. Don't make it a leading question. So a leading question is one wherein you sort of give hint about the expected answer. So simply you should ask, do you think Americans should buy imported automobiles? Whether patriotic, whether whatever else, labor going out of work and all should not be put in the question. Okay. Now, I was also telling you about usage of dual statements. You should be having both positive and negative statements. Now, this is used especially when you have value-based when you're trying to capture psychographic data. So psychographic data are those which capture value, attitude, lifestyle, and all that. So suppose if you ask a question like, I love to play sport. Okay, then so basically you are trying to ask what is your level of agreement on a scale of 1 to 5, how much you agree with it. So strongly agree, neither agree, no disagree, strongly disagree. 5 options possible. So statement that I'm going to give is I love to play sport. Now if you say agree to this, next question is I like to work out. There also if you agree. So then if you ask questions in identical manner, the respondent might actually, without reading, say, keep on clicking agree without reading it. Therefore, some questions should be negatively worded, right? So some questions should be I do not like to work out, or I do not like to play sport, or I like to I spend the free time reading, so things like that. So there should be some questions which are contradictory to the first question, so that you can be sure that the person is going through that properly and then responding to your answer. Right. So not all questions should look identical, or should be similarly worded. So make sure there are some negatively framed sentences also in the question. I mean, is that clear? I'm not sure if you guys don't respond. Yeah, you clear about it? What negatively worded questions are?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, Yasi? You are muted, Yasi, yeah. You are muted, Yasi, I cannot hear you.
Yes, sir, I understand.
You understood, okay, fine. Yes, Ansh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so don't make all the question in similar fashion. Intersperse it with some negative questions also, so that you can really, so suppose somebody says, I like to travel, the next question should be, I hate going out of my home, or something like that, just to measure that this person is saying the right thing or not. Okay, so that is one aspect. Okay, I think we were here yesterday. Now, you need to determine the order of questions. There is a certain way the questions have to be framed. Opening question should be interesting, simple, and non-threatening. The person should not feel like this is a big complicated exercise. So it should be simple and interesting enough. Then type of questions, as a general guideline, basic information should be obtained first, followed by classification, and finally identification. Identification is basically identification of the respondent. Questions about gender or maybe education level, income level, and all those kinds of identification questions. Okay, so basic questions first, then what you would like to study. Maybe you are trying to look for brand preference, or you are trying to look at awareness about 5G product. So whatever your study is about. Okay, so then difficult questions. So questions which are sensitive, embarrassing, complex, dull should be placed towards the end. If questions about taxation or anything which you think is sensitive or maybe difficult for it, place it towards end, and they'll be able to answer as you build a rapport with the respondent. Now, order of question again. Uh, General questions, questions that are of a general nature, should precede a more specific question. This is called funneling effect or funneling approach. So let's say, for example, if you ask what considerations are important to you in selecting a department store, let me ask you guys, what are the important considerations for you in selecting a department store? Okay, when you want to shop at a department store, you have multiple options, right? So what are the considerations you would do? Shamika, you can see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So answer this question. What are the considerations? What considerations do you have when you sort of select a department store or a convenience store or a mall? What considerations are important for you while selecting a department store? General question, just answer that. When you sort of consider choosing a department store,
So that it has a variety of the things that I need.
okay,
So if it's basically if it's a department store, then it should have the men's clothing section, the women's clothing section, and in that too, it should have like all types of things that I need basically. So yeah.
okay, yeah. What are the considerations? Yes, Ansh.
Surprise.
Price, okay, of course, brilliant. Okay, you really are interested in knowing if there is a sale, if there is a discount sale going on. Absolutely, yes, Ansh.
Uh, the offers in
Offers, okay, yeah. Anything else? Yes, see.
Sir, it depends on my needs. Maybe the quality.
Quality, okay. So you guys are actually not thinking. You guys have not gone to a mall, is it? Mall shopping, you just hang out and all that. So what are the considerations you have in mind? Nobody considers location. You're willing to go 50 kilometers to the mall or 20 kilometers?
No, sir.
Don't you want to go to a place which is closest to your place where you can reach in 20 minutes, 15 minutes? Right? Maybe as students, you have all the time in the world to go wherever you want and spend a lot of time. But think about it, your parents, they don't have a lot of time to go around. So they look for something which is convenient to reach quickly. You can be done with it within an hour and a half. Nobody wants to travel 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers, get to the place. Right? So location is extremely important. How close it is to where you live. Second consideration, when you go there, is it a crowded place? Will you be able to park your vehicle? Is it not a consideration? If you go to a very busy street and if you cannot park your vehicle, will you want to go to a place like that? Right. Thirdly, if you don't want to park your car, that's okay. But will it have access to public transport? Is it in a place which is easily accessible, or will you have to hire separate auto, cab, whatever to get there? Are these not considerations for you? I'm just asking you openly. I mean, think about it. It's not only price, not only quality, not only this, no? Like convenience of the store, how to reach the store is not important. The ambience of the store is not important for you. Whether there is like they call there is a life to the place, or whether whatever fashionable people reach there, because people don't go to malls just to shop. They also go look at other people. Agree, disagree?
Agreed.
Okay, you basically go to a mall to hang out, chill out, whatever, dress up and go look at other people and maybe go on a date and all of that. So it's not that you're only going to buy. So these are also considerations. Aren't not? Would you rather not go to upscale sort of mall to spend more time to hang out and all of that? Or would you rather go to a very crowded, dingy place, which is far away from the city? Right. I think I'm blank faces. Yes, see, how is it in Indonesia? Tell me.
All the mall and department store is crowded, sir.
They're crowded. Okay. And what about, let's say, are there sufficient parking spaces available?
No, sir.
This is, we're talking about Kalimantan, right? Borneo.
Oh, in Kalimantan. Yeah, it's still crowded, sir.
It's still crowded, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So, okay. So all I was trying to ask you is this, get a response from you guys. What considerations are important for you when you select a department store? Okay. So now, so I was trying to illustrate the importance of funneling. So a more broad question first, and then you come to a very specific question. And then second question is going to be, in selecting a department store, how important is convenience of location for you? So now, if what considerations important you, if you say price, quality, and you might say ambience, and you may not mention convenience at all. So I may actually next ask you that. How important is convenience? Is it important, availability, access, car parking facility, access to public transport, right? So that is the whole idea of funneling. So I'm just showing the previous slide so that I suppose, yeah, okay, yeah. So broad questions first, and then narrow it down to specific questions when you prepare a questionnaire. Right. So when you design your questionnaire, there is a logical order to be followed, and this is how it should work. The question being branched, the one to which respondent is being directed, should be placed as close to the as close as possible to the question causing the branching. Let's say, for instance, I determine that I will be looking only at responses given by the respondent. So if I ask you, um, so maybe I'm going to study price consciousness among uh, mm, customers. Okay, and then I ask them what factors affect you, or what factors do you consider when you go to the mall, and somebody says price. So now I'm waiting for that price response from the respondent, and that is my reason to branch out. Then I will be asking a series of questions on price. That's called branching. Okay, so then the next question is, okay, I really want to know whether offers are important, whether sale is important, and so as to whether people are really price conscious, right? So then maybe my objective is actually to study price. So then there I will have a branch. So my next question is series of questions is going to be on price. Subsequent question is going to be, how much are you willing to pay for something, or will you consider buying during, let's say, the peak season, or whatever, Diwali season, or the festival season, Christmas season, whatever. A series of questions on prices, and I may disregard everything else because that may be the original objective of my study. So this is called branching. I may not ask the rest of the question to this respondent. However, if the person doesn't mention price and if he lists four other properties, four other qualities or whatever, so I might choose to take him in a different thing. I may be interested in studying further about the person who is concerned about ambience, whether it's look and feel of the place which interests him more or not. So this is the whole idea of branching, right? So sometimes if you are only studying location and convenience, so you may use that as a branching and then ask all the subsequent questions on this. Right, and you may ignore all the other respondents, and maybe you ask 2-3 more questions, thank him for his time, and you may move on. Right. So that is the whole idea of branching. So general questions, funnel it, and then you may also branch if you think. Let's say, for instance, you're doing studies on travel, and then you ask people, how frequently do you travel, and and then say, suppose you're specifically interested in people who have visited Africa, for instance, okay, because there is something about Africa that you want to study. So then you ask people, which countries have you visited, which continents have you visited, and they'll say, I've been to Asia, I've been to Southeast Asia, I've been to Japan, I've been to Russia, I've been to Europe. So then you ask, have you been to Africa? No. So then you are not interested in that person anymore, right? So then you sort of thank him and say, okay, thank you, or whatever, make me ask 1 or 2 more questions and say thank you for your time and move on, because you're specifically interested in maybe the tourist potential of Africa, for instance. Okay, so that is called branching. So the moment you reach that point, then you, okay, so only people who answer yes to the question, have you been to Africa? We are only interested in those people. All right, so that is the whole sort of concept of branching. Okay, the question being branched should be as closest to this. The branching question should be ordered so that the respondents cannot anticipate what additional information. Okay, now the general ordering of questions in a questionnaire is uh, qualifying screening questions first. So qualifying screening question is like if you are studying something on Bluetooth or 5G, you should sort of make sure that person is a tech enthusiast. The person understands enough about technology or 5G or whatever, whatever you're doing. So that is the first thing, because otherwise you're wasting your time. No point in asking him about age and whatever other let's say uh, income bracket and education level and all of that, if the person doesn't know anything about what you intend to ask him, so you're just wasting his time and your time, right? So first question should actually be whether the guy is fit for your, so determine that. So for instance, if it's about shopping for groceries, first question should be who in your household does most of the shopping for groceries. And if the guy says it's my wife, then there's no point in asking this man, because she is the decision maker. She is the one determining how much of what she's buying. Right. So the first question, because you're interested in understanding about grocery shopping and what quantities they are bought, how frequently it is bought and all of that. So if you have studies on that, then do not go and ask the man of the house. Right. Or at least ask the man of the house who makes that decision. If he says it's my wife who does it, then you thank him for his time and you move on. All right. So be clear about it. So qualifying screening question. Then introductory question or warm-up question, broad, easy, general question, basically to break the ice and make the person comfortable, put him at ease. So a question like, how often do you shop for groceries? Right? So introductory question, basically to making comfortable. Then you come to the main question, whatever your agenda of your study is related to information needed, but still easy to answer. How important is each of the following factors in selecting a supermarket? So how important are these on a scale of 1 to 10 or a 1 to 7 or whatever? So location, ease, convenience, ambience, price, upscale, fashionable, whatever, So on a 1 to scale, how important are these things? Right? So that is the main thing that you're interested in knowing. Right? So that is the next question. Then related to the information needed, but a little more difficult. So, right. So, and then you ask about rank order and all of that. How would you rank order the following 8 supermarkets in terms of your preference to shop? And then you say, whatever you're studying, let's say rank order this 5 soaps, five beauty products, hair care products, whatever cosmetics, whatever else that you're studying, then give them all those things and say, okay, this would you prefer this over that over the other, and all of that, right? So we've dealt with all that. So rank order. So don't start with the rank order question, right? It will throw him off. You will not know what you're sort of trying to do. Then you ask psychographics or lifestyle question, right? Because you want to know more about the person. Right. So again, if you look at it, so people were talking about what their important considerations are. They were somebody was saying price, somebody was saying offer, and all of that. So you will be able to see a correlation between what is important to them and what their lifestyle is. Okay, so lifestyle is things like what is it that you do, as in questions like what do you do? What do you do in your free time? Right? Do you play tennis? Do you read books? Do you travel? Things like that, which will give you an indication of what your habits are and what your preferences are, and so on and so forth. How frequently do you visit a mall? How frequently do you sort of engage in a sport? And so just to get a sense of what kind of person he or she is, right? So these are basically questions you ask. I also did mention a little earlier, please also word it positively and negatively. Let all of them not be positively worded. Some of them should also have a negative connotation, so that not that every time whatever you say is agree, strongly agree, agree, strongly agree. No, at least once or twice you should also say disagree, right? So have some negatively worded question also. So psychographics is basically trying to understand the lifestyle, preferences, attitudes, and all of those. Demographics is personal information capturing age, gender, level of education, income category and all of that. That is your demographics. Okay. And lastly, name. It is optional because really, I mean, one is not interested in the name so much. But the only reason people collect the name is sometimes, you know, you would have collected the wrong information and then you might want to go back to that person and recheck. Or as in a formal marketing research organization, sometimes, you know, the field respondents go collect information and the manager really wants to know if this information is collected from the respondent or this man has cooked up his data. Right, for that reason, sometimes you say you collect his name and roll number, or sorry, your own name and phone number, so that we can actually verify that, you know, you are actually reached that person. But strictly speaking, name is not required. Marketing research, market research is supposed to be an anonymous affair. We are not trying to sort of study that individual, right? We are only trying to understand characteristics in general for the population. But this people sometimes collect, please give me contact details. It is for his supervisor or senior to go back and, you know, sort of make random calls and see whether this man has done his work. So I'm talking from a very personal, practical point of view. Sometimes this happens. This is to identify the respondent. So sometimes people don't collect that data at all. Right. Now, form and layout of the questionnaire. It's got several parts. The question, each part should be numbered, particularly when branching questions are used. Of course, this is more relevant in a traditional paper sort of questionnaire that you prepare. Of course, all of you are going to do web-based things, so this may not be so all that relevant for you. Questionnaires should be pre-coded. I'll tell you what coding is. Questionnaires themselves should be numbered serially. So number serially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and also on. Pre-coding is this, what you see on the screen next. So let's say, for instance, this is an example of a pre-coded questionnaire. So considering all the times you pick it up, about how much time in total do you spend reading or looking through a typical copy of the American Lawyer? Basically, how much time do you spend reading this particular magazine or journal, American Lawyer? Okay, now you will see in the response, it's a multiple choice response. It says less than 30 minutes, 30 to 59 minutes, 1 hour to 1 hour 29 minutes, 1.5 hours to 1 hour 59 minutes, 2 hours to 2 hours 59 minutes, 3 hours or more. Okay, clearly you can see that the responses are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. Right? It begins with less than 30 minutes. So if you don't read at all or whatever, it comes in that category. If you read for more than 3 hours or more. Okay, so everything is covered. So even if it's 0, if it's 5, 7, 10 hours, wherever you can tick in one of these boxes. So everything, it's collectively exhaustive. That's first point. It is also mutually exclusive because there is no confusion. It says 30 to 59 minutes. It doesn't say 30 to 60 minutes and then next it doesn't say 1 hour to 1 hour 29 minutes. It's very, very, very precise. This is what we were discussing yesterday. Remember, Nirbhay, I think you were having this doubt. Nirbhay?
No, sir.
Yeah, I'm just trying to explain mutual exclusivity, Nirbhay. Can you see the question? Clearly it says 30 to 59 minutes, option 2, and then option 3 is 1 hour to 1 hour 29 minutes. If he had put 30 minutes to 60 minutes, it's not mutually exclusive. What if you actually spend 60 minutes reading daily? So where will you put it? In 2 or 3? In option 2 or option 3? Right, I'm just trying to illustrate what mutual exclusiveness is. Okay, because you were not sure about it yesterday. I think, was it you or someone else? I think I remember it was Nirbhay who had an issue. Yeah, Nirbhay, is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. All right, let's move on. Okay, so the coding part. So coding part is this little number. It's perhaps not very clear. This little number you're finding on the right of that small box. So less than 30 minutes, there is a 1 next to it. 30 to 59 minutes, there is a 2 next to it. 1 hour to 1 hour 29 minutes, there are 3 next to it. Okay, that's what you call pre-coding. So basically, when you analyze data, basically what you do is you look at question number 1 and how many 1s have you got, how many 2s have you got, how many 3s have you got, and then you sum it up and how many 4s, how many 5s, how many 6, right? So that 1, 2, 3, which is written next to that small box, is called coding or pre-coding, right? So if you go out with a physical question, it's a good idea to have coding, but of course with computer technology, Google Forms and all of that, you will be able to do a lot of these things without any of these efforts, right? But this is how it used to be done traditionally. So reproduction of the questionnaire use. Yes, please.
Sir, but there is no option he who doesn't read this book.
No, this is okay. This is just one question which is asked to people who said they have gone through. You will first
Okay.
yourself first ask a filter question. Okay, what magazines do you read? Okay, Time Magazine, Newsweek, American Lawyer, Cosmopolitan, this and that. And then whoever has clicked on American Lawyer, only that fellow we will ask this question. So this is a branching question. If he doesn't say he has read American Lawyer, you will not ask this question to him. Right? This is just an example question. Right? So this question will only be asked to people who said they have read or they have been reading. All right. So, okay, but a good question. Thanks for asking. Right. Reproduction of the questionnaire, again, double page, properly written and all of that. This is more relevant when you go out with a physical copy of this, but perhaps not so relevant in our internet era when everything is going to be done online. So, but anyway, I'm going to be sharing the slides with you. Let me not spend time on this page. Okay, pre-testing is important. So pre-testing basically, like I said, one tends to be blind to one's own errors. So make sure that you sort of, after you prepare a questionnaire, you ask your friend to go through it, test with them, check with him or her, ask if there is a logical consistency in whatever you are asking and whether there is any sort of if there is any sort of abnormality or any oddity about how you have phrased it, whether they're able to understand what you're trying to convey, because you might have something in mind, the other person might understand something else when he or she reads it. So pre-test it, ask 3 to 5 people, friends, family, whoever, and try to answer the questionnaire yourself. Try to see how it comes out. Okay, so put yourself in the other side also, and then so that's the whole idea of pre-testing, making sure that your instrument is robust. So questionnaire should not be used in field survey without adequate pre-testing. All aspects of question should be tested, including question content, wording, sequence, form, layout, difficulty, instructions. Respondents of pretest and for the actual survey should be drawn from the same population. Pretest done are best done initially by personal interviews followed by actual survey method if it is different. Okay. Now, so after, suppose, let's say, for instance, you get inputs, like people say that we don't understand this question or, whatever. So make those changes. And after you make those changes, again, do once more, make sure that it's like watertight. Make sure that everybody understands it. There's no ambiguity. There is no double barrel question or any of the other problems we discussed in the last class. All right. Now, okay, it says 15 to 30 respondents and all. Okay, maybe not quite required in your case, but make sure that you pre-test it and sort of make it a fairly robust instrument. Now, again, because I'm spending a little more time on this particular thing, because we are going to have a graded assignment, that is, you'll have to prepare a questionnaire. So let me quickly go through this in detail so that for one last time, so that you get a clear picture of what is expected. Questionnaire design checklist. Step 1, specify the information needed. Ensure that the information obtained fully addresses all the components of the problem. Have a clear idea of the target population. So, if you want to study a particular thing, so be very clear about what is it, that whether you're trying to, again, study brand awareness, whether you're going to study about preference for something, or likelihood of doing something, or awareness about a new technology product, or whatever. So be very clear about what is it that you're trying to study. Look at the type of interviewing method based on considerations discussed in all the previous classes, whether it should be questionnaire method, whether it should be focus group method, whether it should be projective technique, whether it should be depth interview. So all of those will depend exactly on what is it that you're trying to study, what the objective of the study is. Then individual content of the questionnaire. Is the question necessary? So how are you going to analyze the response? So be very clear about when you ask a question, make sure, or sort of be mindful and conscious about the fact as to whether the question is really necessary. Are several questions needed instead of one to obtain the information required in an unambiguous manner? Okay, are several questions required? Can one question be asked? Again, so when I say one question, don't end up using double barrel question, right? Don't ask, is it easy and convenient to do something? So which means if you say yes, it means it's both easy and convenient. But somebody might say it's easy, but perhaps not convenient, and vice versa. All right, so be mindful of that. So again, Step 4, overcoming inability or unwillingness to answer. So people may be unwilling to answer because of 3 reasons. One is you're testing their memory. People may not remember everything. Another reason could be ignorance. They don't know enough about the topic or subject that you're studying. And fourth one is difficulty to articulate that. So if they cannot remember, you make it easy by giving them multiple choices or options that they can click, and minimize the efforts required of the respondents and make it easy and a pleasant process for them to deal with the questions you're asking. Make the request for information seem legitimate, and if information is sensitive, if you're asking for sensitive information, try using desensitizing techniques. Basically try to say that, this is perhaps not as bad as it sounds, or like I was telling you, taxation, evasion of taxation is generally commonly seen in society. So even if you're answering questions about it, it's not a judgment against you individually or something like that. So make sure that it doesn't come across as a very terribly wrong thing to do, or whatever, right. Open-ended questions are useful both in exploratory research and as opening questions in structured questions, so that you break the ice and make him feel comfortable. Use structured questions whenever possible, because that is easy to code and analyze subsequently. In multiple choice questions, response alternate should include the set of all possible choices and should be mutually exclusive. So again, I've been talking about it yesterday, sometime back also. Okay, mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. In a dichotomous question, basically dichotomous questions are those which have a yes or no answer, or like male, female, whatever, 2 possible answers kind of thing. But if you think substantial proportion of the respondents can be expected to give a neutral response instead of yes or no, maybe you can also include a maybe option, or I don't know option, or male, female, also include transgender and things like that. If the response alternatives are numerous, consider using more than one question. So wording, again, we spoke about it at length yesterday. The 6 W's, that is who, what, when, where, why, and way, important, particularly who, what, where, when. So when you ask a question, don't simply ask, do you use a shampoo, or which shampoo do you use? Be specific. What shampoo have you used at home in the last 1 month? List all that apply, because if you ask which shampoo, we would have used 3 shampoos in the last 1 month. So you should say list all that apply. So make it make the questions and define it properly in terms of all these concepts. Use ordinary words and also be mindful of the vocabulary levels of the respondent. Keep it as simple as possible. Some of the technical words or the words you normally use, which you take for granted, may not be understood by the respondent. So very important, pre-testing. Right. Yesterday, I learned that a lot of you did not understand distribution. Actually, that was quite a revelation for me. But yeah.
Sir, hello.
Yes, please. Yes, Ansh.
Sir, my class is from 1:40. Shall I go?
Yeah, Nirbhay, carry on. Okay. Then avoid ambiguous words. Ambiguous words are usually, normally, frequently, often, regularly, occasionally, sometimes. Because your sometimes is different from mine. Your usually is different by my usually. Your occasionally is different from my occasionally, right? So use those words, be very specific, once a week, twice a week, more than 7 times a week, or whatever. So be very specific when using those words. Avoid questions that give clue to the respondent as to what the answer should be. So like we were starting initially, say that, because India and China are having a face-off at the border, should you buy Chinese products? So don't ask questions which gives a hint about what the expected answer is. That is a leading question. Avoid asking those questions. Simply ask, should Indians import, or should Chinese products be imported? Simply that. Don't give any value judgment. Okay. Use both positive and negative statements just to break the monotony, because people keep on saying yes, agree, strongly agree. To break that, make sure some negativity word questions are also there. All right. So opening question should be interesting, simple, and non-threatening. Qualifying question should serve as opening questions. Basic information should be obtained first, followed by classification, and finally identification information. Difficult, sensitive, complex question should be placed late, towards end. General question should precede specific questions. Question should be asked in a logical order. Form and layout. Divide the question into several parts. Questions in each part should be numbered. Questionnaires themselves should be numbered serially. Okay. Particularly true when you go out with a printed question. Of course, here also when you use Google Forms or SurveyMonkey, all those things will get done for you automatically. So you don't have to worry too much about it here. Reproduction, again, double page spacing, visible, legible, and all of that, but should not be a problem online. Pre-testing should definitely be done so that you sort of, capture any error if there is early enough. Variety of interviewers should be used and all of that. Okay. And finally, a conceptual map of whatever we discussed for much of yesterday and today. A question should define the issue: who, what, when, where, and why. Use ordinary words. Don't ask words which the respondent might find difficult to understand. So use simple words and frame it in a nice, simple manner. Words should match the vocabulary level of the respondents. Very, very important. The person should not feel overwhelmed with the questioning. Avoid ambiguous words. Avoid particularly words like usually, normally, regularly, frequently, sometimes, because that will be differently understood by different respondents. Avoid leading or biasing questions. Don't try to put a value judgment in the question so that the respondent is forced to answer in a certain manner. Use dual statements. So don't always frame all the questions in a positive way. Also frame some in a negative fashion. I hate going out, I hate shopping, or I hate travel, I hate working out, whatever. So some of the statements should also be negatively worded. So that is the way to set the question paper. So the question paper, whatever that is due by Friday, I hope we'll be able to do it by then, and then use the weekend's particularity to complete it, right? So we'll move to the next topic. I'll break this here, recording here, and then record the next video. 1 second.